Hey guys, Dr. Morgan here. We're a few days into the new year and I bet you've all set those resolutions and are filled with enthusiasm to hit the mark. I also bet that a couple of you have maybe cheated a tiny bit or given up completely already. Don't worry about that because it's entirely normal and there are very good reasons that we generally don't stick to our New Year's resolutions. Over the next few weeks I'm going to teach you some tips and strategies to make sure that you get there, and I'm going to share with you my 7 favorite tips for ensuring you achieve lasting change. Now make sure you stick around for number 7 because it will really blow your mind and change the way you think about goals forever. Number 1 is that willpower is actually finite, and we've proven this scientifically. In the same way that you can't run a physical race sprinting all the way from the beginning to the end because you'll literally collapse. Emotional energy is much the same way, and you can't keep forcing your way through to achieving a new goal. One of the core feelings and needs that we have as humans are to experience pleasure and to be rewarded. Now sometimes, even if those rewards were negative ones or ones that weren't doing us any good, we still see them as a reward. So if you give up that for a period of time, your body's eventually going to feel neglected, and it's going to feel like you're depriving it of something that it really needs. And that need to be rewarded and to experience pleasure finally overcomes willpower. Imagine that you have a piece of cake somewhere in the kitchen, in a tin or in a cupboard, and you think, well, I really need to lose weight, so I'm not going to eat this cake today. The next day, it slowly starts to kind of whisper to you from across the room. And before you know it, you're in there, and you don't just have a piece, you eat the whole cake because you've completely given up. This leads nicely to number 2, which is that you have to create a new, healthier habit which is more aligned with your best self than the old habit that you're trying to replace. Habits are ingrained behaviors that we've done so many times that they become automated. We don't even have to think about them anymore. Even if we don't want to do them, our body has a kind of a memory that just leads us into doing them. And there are many examples of this. But let's use the cake analogy again. And I'm sorry, I really don't have anything against cake, but we can all relate to how difficult it is to change our eating habits. So here goes. Imagine that after dinner, you sit down on the couch and you're watching TV. And after an hour or so, you feel like a cup of tea. But every night with a cup of tea, you have a couple of cookies or a piece of cake because you really need something sweet at night. Now we all know that you don't need something sweet at night, but that's the habit that you formed over years and years and years. So let's imagine that after dinner, you fancy a cup of tea and you get up to the kitchen to put on the kettle. And while you're boiling the kettle, you automatically find yourself in the cupboard where all the cookies are because you're used to having something sweet with your cup of tea. You don't really want or need anything sweet, but you've been doing it for years, so your body naturally takes you there. So you look at the box of cookies and you go, well, one bite will be okay. Now you've got a half-button cookie in your hand and you think, okay, well, I may as well have one and finish this one. So you eat that while you're waiting for the cup to brew. Now you've got a taste for sugar. And before the tea's ready, you're back in the pantry and you've got 2 or 3 more cookies on your plate, and you come down and sit down in the lounge and you enjoy your cookie. So tomorrow you're super vigilant about this, and while you're brewing your tea, you keep yourself busy, or you tap your fingers, or you sing a song, or whatever it may be, but you feel a little bit deprived. Anyway, you've got loads of willpower, so you go and sit on the couch and you're quite proud of yourself because you haven't done it. You can maybe keep that up for a couple of nights, but before you know it, you're going to be back in that cookie cupboard looking for cookies. So what do? Well, this is what I meant earlier when I said you need to take a new, healthier habit and replace the old one, because nature really abhors a vacuum. And if you leave a vacuum for nature, it will make sure that it fills it with something, and usually something that's familiar. Hence, you'll be looking for cookies. So next time, while you're brewing your cup of tea, why don't you pack away the washing or go upstairs and put out your clothes for tomorrow. That way you've saved yourself 5 minutes in the morning. You've not missed looking for a cookie because you've been busy. And by the time you sit down on the couch, the feeling has kind of passed and you enjoy your cup of tea. Now the good news is that it's also been scientifically proven that a new habit develops if you repeat it for 21 to 28 days, depending on who you believe. If you keep doing it every single day, eventually that'll become your new habit. And what you'll then be doing every day without thinking about it is while you're brewing your tea, you'll be going upstairs, packing out your clothes for tomorrow, putting away the washing, or whatever it is that will be a new healthy habit and save you time. Be aware though, the first week's going to be pretty easy. The second week, well, you're okay, you can handle this. By the third week, you're really frustrated because you're still thinking cookie, 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 cookie. But I can guarantee you, and I've done this many, many times myself, between 21 and 28 days, between week 3 and week 4, all of a sudden this is going to become your new automated behavior and you never have to think about it again. Number 3 is that you have to get really clear on what you want and focus. Focus is even an acronym that they use in self-help circles. That stands for follow one course until successful, and it's incredibly true. And one of the best ways to make sure that you focus and stay committed is to write your goals down. Writing it down creates this kind of magic that we can't explain, but it keeps you accountable. And if you've written it somewhere prominent, like on a card in your purse or on the back of your sun visor in your car, or even on the inside of your bathroom mirror when you open it to take out the toothbrush, you can see your goals very, very clearly, and this helps you to kind of drive through the whole process and get you to the end safely. Another tool that you can use, which is really, really helpful, is visualization. And it's used by all the most successful people in the world, from athletes to business people. What you do is you get a very clear picture of what you will feel like and how good it feels when you have completed your goal, when you've finally made that New Year's resolution habit and you no longer need to think about it. So on a daily basis, preferably twice a day, the best time being the morning and the evening is when you're most susceptible to suggestion. You paint yourself a mental movie about how you will look, how you will feel. You can even put sounds and effects in there when you've managed to stop smoking or lose 5 pounds or go running every day. Try it. You won't be disappointed. Number 4 is that most people overestimate what they can achieve in a year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. Now that's a famous quote by Bill Gates, and I don't know about you, but a year and 10 years is quite a long time, and that's probably reserved for really massive, ambitious goals. So let's bring it down to something a little more realistic and say most people overestimate what they can do in a month, but underestimate what they can do in a year. Or even better, most people overestimate what they can achieve in a week, but underestimate what they can do in a month. And that brings us perfectly back to the 21 to 28 days analogy about forming a new habit. So forget about doing it in a week, but if you think about doing it over a period of a month, you're going to box it every time. It's far more effective to set a realistic goal so that you can make sure you achieve it. And you also need to celebrate those victories because that keeps you going. Again, write it down, because when you've written it down, you've got a very clear roadmap. You need to be sure that you know where you're starting, and you need to be sure where you want to be when you finish. That way, you've got a very good idea of what you need to achieve. And you can look at it daily if you've written it down. Number 5 is overwhelm. And it's one of the biggest killers of resolutions there is. When we take on too much, we often fail at most or all of it and give up feeling dejected, often never to try again. So it's really important to break your goals down into achievable steps so that you can achieve each one, make it your new default behavior, so you don't even have to think about it anymore because it comes automated, and then you try the next one, and so on and so on. Think of the analogy of running up a hill, particularly if it's a little bit wet and muddy. Now, if it's a tiny little bank, you can just run up and you'll be on the top and it'll be fine. But if it's a steep hill, you can't stop, because if you stop, you're going to slide down. So you can't rest. You just have to keep going. And more often than not, you're going to get to a point where it becomes too steep, too hard, and you end up sliding around to the bottom. So much, much better if you think of a staircase going up the same hill, and you take one step, get used to that step, make it your new default behavior. You can even sit down or lie down for a while. You're not going anywhere. It's a step. And when you're ready, you take the next one. Again, really important to write it down, because if you've got these goals listed and each time you've gone up a step and you've crossed it off, you can always look back on that goal and see how far you've come. And at times when you become a little bit deflated, you can have a look and you can see that you have actually made really good progress and you've made massive change already. I think it's also worth mentioning that anxiety is overwhelm's best friend, and often the thing that's going to stop us in our tracks whenever we try to make change. Now, it's actually an evolutionary response that we've kept from hundreds of years ago, when leaving the confines of your camp or moving away from your tribe would mean that you'd probably get eaten by a lion or a bear, or you'd be attacked by a neighboring tribe. So we've been conditioned to keep everything that we do simple and not change or challenge anything because we could die. Now, we don't live in that kind of environment anymore, but there are still bears and tigers out there, but they're very, very different, and our brains haven't yet evolved to be able to allow us to change. So every single time you feel that anxiety coming onto you, just remember, it's nothing more than an evolutionary kind of training that's programmed you to behave that way. Overcoming anxiety is one of the effective tools that you can learn to be able to conquer change. And although it goes beyond the scope of this video to go through all of them, there are a few that I think are really, really helpful. The first one is that if you think about it, anxiety is actually very, very similar in the body, if not exactly the same, to the physiological response that you get when you're excited about something. Your heart's going, you kind of maybe have sweaty palms, you get that feeling of overwhelm. If you're on a roller coaster just about to go over the edge, that kind of fear, it's also excitement. Or when you're about to go on a date, it's exactly the same thing. So what you need to do is convince yourself that that anxiety, which is accompanied by the negative emotion of fear, you just combine that with a positive emotion of excitement, and all of a sudden you kind of don't feel as bad because you go, oh, actually, I'm not scared of this goal. I'm really excited that I'm going to be able to achieve it. And that may not shift you completely, but that may give you enough just to kind of get you over it. If you're kind of really good at it, every time you become fearful, you just see it as excitement, and it gives you the energy to go through and complete the goal. The second one is breathing. I find this is really, really valuable. And you can do it anywhere, whether you're in the queue at the supermarket, whether you're in a busy, crowded place. All you need to do is slow yourself down, focus on your breathing, breathe in for 4 counts, and breathe out for 4 counts. And just keep this going. Nobody's even going to know you're doing it. If you want to turbocharge that, all you do is, without even closing your eyes, you can do it if you want to, but without even closing your eyes, just take yourself to a time or a place in your mind when you're relaxed, confident, at ease, or feeling like you've really achieved something. Because the body doesn't really know the difference between what's real and what's false. So if you can imagine that clearly enough in your mind, the physiological response of your body will follow from the thought process that you got in your mind, and you'll just manage to calm down enough to get out of that situation. Now, if you're somebody that suffers from chronic anxiety, if you practice these tools regularly enough, you will see a massive improvement in your symptoms, and you may even get rid of them completely. Number 6 is that you need to have a really strong why, a reason why you're doing all of this, a reason why it's worth going through all the hassle and the difficulties of making these changes uncomfortably to get to where you need to be. It acts as an accountability partner because, as we all know, you're much more likely to achieve something if you know someone else is relying on you than if you were just doing it for yourself. And it needs to be specific. It needs to excite you. Don't just say, because I want to lose 5 pounds. Say, because I want to lose a certain amount of weight so that I can be fit, healthy, live a long and prosperous life, so that I can go running on the beach with my grandkids, or so that I can climb Table Mountain or walk up to Machu Picchu, whatever blows your hair back. But you have to be clear, because times are going to come where you are going to feel despondent, where you're going to be ready to give up, where your energy levels are really low. And unless you have something to keep you going, you probably will give up. Again, write it down, put it on a card, look at it every day, remind yourself why you're doing this, and it'll make it worthwhile. I'm really glad if you've stayed this long, because I promise you about number 7, and you won't be disappointed. Here it is. Number 7 is that your subconscious mind is sabotaging you, and you're going to need to reset your programming if you're going to want to change. Since you've been very little, you've been taking cues from adults, from your parents, from friends at school, who've told you things that you just believed as true because they were people you respected. And these experiences have formed your reality, your beliefs. And unless you challenge those, whatever you believe deep down, without even thinking about it, is your reality, is going to be your reality. And no matter how much you try to change that, it's going to stay the same. One example of how this works is something as simple as a thermostat. If you've got your thermostat in your house set to 21 degrees, everything will be nice and toasty, And when the house gets to 21 degrees, the boiler or the furnace will turn off, and it will stay that way until it cools down. Now, if somebody opens the door and it's snowing outside, the cold air is going to rush inside, and all of a sudden the temperature is going to plummet down to 19 or 18 or 17 degrees. And what's going to happen? The thermostat's going to get the boiler to kick back in, and all the radiators are going to come on, and the house is going to get back up to 21 degrees, and then it's going to turn off. Now, your programming is a little bit like that, and you're going to be stuck doing the same things that you do every single day by habit, because that's what your subconscious wants you to do. And unless you are actively trying to override that and actively trying to make changes to your internal settings, you're going to find it really, really difficult to make the changes that you want to change. And the longer you've been stuck in that reality, probably the longer it's going to take to change. The good news is, though, is that you absolutely have a choice. And there are really powerful ways that you can employ to change your programming. But it's going to take a little bit of time, and it's going to take a little bit of hard work. Now, they're probably beyond the scope of this video today, but what I'm definitely going to be doing over the next few weeks and months is some more videos specifically on techniques, strategies that you can use to change your internal thermostat. I realized many, many years ago, one day it dawned on me while I was driving. All my epiphanies seem to happen while I'm driving. Maybe I'm driving too much, I don't know. But I realized that what I have, although I'm really grateful for what I have, 2 children, a nice house in the suburbs, 2 nice cars, and a good professional job. It dawned on me that that was what I always wanted from the earliest that I could remember. And I got really, really upset with myself because I wanted more, not in terms of the family, but more in terms of what I could achieve, what I could do. And every time I tried to step out of my comfort zone, I just got flattened back down, and I couldn't understand it. Then I started searching for answers through many of the teachers that you can find online as well, and I recommend that you look for them to try and help you to change your settings, to explore the reasons why you're stuck in your reality. But when I started looking into these, I learned this thing about your subconscious, and I've slowly been doing those things to change my reality and to achieve more and to be able to be my best self. And one of the things was actually making these videos. For about 3 years, I've wanted to make medical videos to help people with basic concepts. And I hope that this is a worthwhile experience for you. Change happens at the end of your comfort zone, and it's going to get really uncomfortable, and you're going to have to step out of that comfort zone. But it's so worthwhile, and you're going to be able to have massive improvements in your quality of life. So stick with me over the next few weeks, and I will teach you the lessons that I've accumulated along the way to be able to change my life from what I thought was really possible. Now, in the meantime, I'm going to ask you to start questioning things. Question why you're doing automated things. Are you doing them because they're the right thing to do, or because they make you more productive? Or are you just doing them because somebody told you it was the right way to do things and you've never really questioned that? If you can open that little seed of doubt for your subconscious mind, it'll be much easier to reprogram more productive habits and more productive beliefs of the years to come. So if you liked this video, please share it with your friends, give it a thumbs up, and remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell, which means that as soon as I make another episode, it will come immediately into your inbox and you can join me then. So until next time, keep well and see you soon.